Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament. And we're in a passage of parables here, and so we're studying this chronologically. And since we're studying it chronologically, all the parables are stacked back to back to back. It's the teachings that Jesus did while he was in Galilee. And so we're going to continue to do this. And my ask is if this is something that's helpful to you, then share it because it could be helpful for someone else. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please go ahead and do so because we're going to continue to try to continue to have and put out these type of lessons, daily lessons. And then we're going to we're working on some stuff to dive a little bit deeper into some questions people have and some other things that we know people may be looking at. And so again, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And so today we're looking at Jesus explaining the parable of the weeds. And so a couple of days ago, we looked at Jesus giving the parable of the weeds, and he kind of talked about it. And so um, Jesus continued teaching in other parables. And so as they as he was done, the crowds were leaving. The disciples pulled him back and pulled him into the house, or when he went into the house, and they asked, hey, explain this to us. And that we see them do this a couple times because they don't fully understand exactly what Jesus means. And so he sits down and he explains it to them. He says the Son of Man, right, is the farmer, or himself. He's the farmer. He who plants the good seed, right? When we're spreading Jesus's message, right? When we're spreading the message of Jesus, that's who we're talking about. And then he says the field is the world, right? And the good seed represents the people of the kingdom, right? The Christians, the good seed that lands is those who are currently Christians, who are currently growing, thriving, producing fruit. If you remember, we talked about the ones who kind of fell among the weeds, right? That some of them are Christians, or I think a lot of us are in that area where we go to church, we show up, we do the checklist, we check our boxes, right? But then we're not really producing any fruit. We're not really, and so we need to make sure we're not in that. And if we are in that, then we really need to look at it because Jesus is saying, hey, those who don't produce fruit aren't good seed. And so even though we may believe in Jesus, we may follow what he says, if we're not going 100%, right? If we're just kind of showing up and if we're just kind of checking boxes, I don't know if we're going to fall under the group of the good seed. And so we really need to make sure we're producing fruit. And he says, so he continues on. The weeds are the people who would belong to the evil one. And so we need to make sure that we fall in and that we don't end up being wheat. And so, I'm sorry, being the weeds. And so you're going to have two groups in the church. You're going to have the seed that produces the fruit, and then you have the wheat who it looks like the weeds that look like the wheat, but they don't produce any fruit. And once they get fully mature, we see that they don't produce anything and they're actually weeds. And this is the interesting thing. He says the enemy who planted the weeds among the wheat is the devil. And so God, what Jesus is saying here is that the devil is going to be able to plant his people in the church. I find that interesting. To me, as a Christian, I'm like, why, Jesus? Why would you allow that? And it's just one of those things. I don't know the answer to that, but it's something that's going to happen. And he says the harvest is the end of the world. So you have he's going to come in, he's going to harvest. The harvest is the end of the world, and the harvesters are the angels, right? If in the end, the angels are going to be the one who do the harvest. And he says, just as the weeds are sorted out and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the world. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will remove from his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. And so we need to make sure we pay attention to that. That is a very scary thought that some of us who think we are Christians may actually be the weed, and so we got to be careful. Now, I'm not judging, I'm not, doing anything like that. But what I'm saying is it says there's going to be people among the church that are not who they think they are. And they're not who they are supposed to be. They're going to be people planted by the devil. And we need to make sure that we stay aware, stay alert, and that we make sure we don't become that person or become the person or we're working for the devil. And so we just need to. And so the angels are going to come. They're going to throw them in the fire furnace where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And this is uh, symbolism that Jesus uses. He says, then the righteous will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Anyone who with ears to hear should listen and understand. And I like how he says it. It's like you really need to pay attention to what I'm saying, right? Listen. You got ears. You listen and understand what I'm saying. And so, like I said, at the end of the world, we're going to have the angels are going to separate the evil from the good, and even in the kingdom, right, of the world, there's going to be people and I don't know. I still just when I read it and I study this, it still just kind of blows me away. But Jesus, like, yeah, there's going to be people put there by the devil in the church. That's in the kingdom. It's going to be there, and so and that's what I said. There's going to be true and false believers in the church today. But and this is where we need to, because this is my personality. I mean, it's like, well, we need to go weed them out, right? We need to get rid of them. That's me. I want to go get rid of them all. But he's saying no. If you go back to this parable, he said, let them grow up together, because we got to be cautious in our judgments, because only Christ is only qualified to make that final decision, right? We need to pay attention to ourselves, right? Because if we go around judging, if we think it's like, oh well, that person's this, and we see this a lot in the church. Right? You see it a lot in church communities where it's like, oh well, this person's doing this or this person's doing that, and we need to, we need to uproot them. And you know what? That more time than not causes more damage than if we just paid attention to ourselves, right? Pay attention to yourselves, fix your own life, right? Because we got enough problems to deal with. And so it's more important to judge our own response to God than to continue analyzing others, right? We need to make sure we're on the right path. We need to make sure we're good with God. We need to make sure that our walk is good. Quit worrying about, you know, the person over to your left or the person to the right, whether they're good or not, right? Or whether they're doing everything they need to be doing. We need to work on ourselves. And so that's where we're at. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't look after one another. That doesn't mean that we don't, there's enough one another verses in the Bible that we know that we are to look out for one and help one another. But this is talking about in a judgmental way, right? Doing it in such a way where it's like, I'm better than this person. We need to rip them up by the roots, right? And you start doing that kind of stuff, and it causes more damage in the church than it does good. And that's what we need to worry about. That's what I say we need to worry about. So it doesn't mean we don't help each other out. We don't continue to lift each other up and help each other. That's a biblical principle through and through. We're commanded to do that. But it's that judgment, like that judging, looking down on, oh well, I'm this superior person. Let me, we need to correct you. And that no, that's what Jesus is talking about, right? We're going to come up together. There's going to be people in the church who are not, in the end, are not going to be of God. This is what this is saying. We know that it's not our job to go through and try to weed all them people out. That's God's job. Jesus is going to take care of that in the end, right? Now, again, there's some other things that we could go into, and like if someone's purposely trying to do something, we know that they're, trying to destroy the church. There's some things, right, that we know, right? But for the most part, it's that we look after yourself, look after one another in a non-judgmental way, help each other out. But that's right. And so the end of this is, the end of this where Jesus, he often uses terms like weeping and gnashing of teeth, stuff like that. And that's just, he's using that to show, right, that there's going to be extreme anxiety and pain when you are separated from God, right? And no one really knows exactly what hell is going to be like. All we know, there's a lot of things of fire and brimstone and pain and anxiety and weeping and gnashing of teeth and remorse. And all we know is that it's complete and total separation from God. That's all we know. And we know that that's going to be horrible. And so the idea is we don't want that. We don't want that for anyone, especially anyone that we love. And so we should be, preparing that. But, in the end, those who say they don't care about what happens to them after they die don't realize what they're saying. They really don't realize what they're saying. They don't know, they don't understand what, and we don't, as Christians, don't understand it. Non-Christians, not going to fully understand it at all. And so, they're going to be punished. It's a punishment, right? For living an indifferent life of God. And again, it's not something that we like to preach, or it's not something that, it's like, oh, I'm not me personally, and a lot of us are, we're not fire and brimstone preachers. Like, oh, you got to do this, you're going to hell. That's not us. We like to present the gospel in a loving way like Jesus did, you know. But in the end, he addressed the fact that, look, in the end, if you don't follow me, this is going to be the consequences. And so we preach that. We don't make that our main message. We don't try to scare people into Christianity. We want to love people into Christianity. And so that's what we're looking at here. And so that's the explanation of the parable of the weeds. And again, for me, it's a hard thing to understand. I don't fully grasp it. It's something that I struggle with. I'll be honest with you. Why he allows the devil to come and plant people in his church. I don't know it. But he gives people free will. He gives the free will in it. The devil has reign on the earth. And so that's just one of those things that he allows to happen. And so again, that's what it is. What it is, it is what it is. And so I appreciate everyone for sticking around and listening to it. Again, we'll have a couple more of these where he goes into a parable and explains it. But if you find it helpful, if you find it useful, then please share it. And like I said in the beginning, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and do so. And as always, thank you for watching.